You guys, I'm so excited right now. I just pulled into a place that has been on my bucket list for years and years and years, and I'm going to take you with me. I wanted to stop by the visitor center before I checked in the following day to make sure I knew where to park, where to go, what I needed to do, that I had everything with me, and so on. So I did swing by there before checking into my campsite the night before my day trip out to Cumberland Island and found out that I would need to purchase a national park pass for the day of my trip. I needed to arrive an hour early. I was on the 9 a.m. ferry, so I had to be there by 8 a.m. to start checking in. And they ask that you get to the actual loading dock about 15 to 20 minutes at least ahead of time. They do load everybody that's on the bikes, and that's going to be camping first so that they can get all of the gear on. But they did warn me that there would be a line in the morning, so it would be a good idea to get there early, make sure that I was parked and had everything that I would need for the day. As you can see, it's a really beautiful area, and even if you are not taking the ferry out, it's a great place to stop for a picnic or just enjoy the gorgeous views. I was told by the ranger that when you're looking out across the river there, that the land you're seeing across from there is actually Florida, even though you're standing on the Georgia side. So that kind of tells you how close you are to that Florida-Georgia line. It was a beautiful day, and I was happy that I had gotten my bearings, and I felt really prepared to set out for the next day. So with that in mind, I went ahead, strolled around for a little bit, and then decided to start heading back to my van so that I could head to the campground to check in for the night, and I would be fresh and ready to go in the morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are on our way back to Cumberland Island this morning to take the ferry over and spend the day exploring, hopefully photographing wild horses and shorebirds and beautiful trees. I'm so excited. This place has been on my bucket list for years, so I cannot wait to share this adventure with you guys. Let's go. I had made sure I knew where to park the day before, so I parked in the parking lot across from the visitor center about a block down, walked over, walked upstairs and checked in, and I was ready to wait to board the ferry. I wandered around for a little bit and just enjoyed the gorgeous weather. It was about 45 or 50, but the high was supposed to be 65 for the day, so I knew I wouldn't be too hot. And about 15-20 minutes before it was time to load the ferry, I started making my way over there. They do have a really nice gift shop on the second floor of the visitor center as well, in the same area where you check in, so that's also an option to shop around while you're waiting. I made sure to pick up a trail map when I was checking in at the visitor center, and I planned on doing the South End Loop, which is their most popular hiking loop for day trips. It was a total of 4.3 miles round trip for the entire loop, and really it's such a huge island that it is kind of not feasible to explore too much more than that in one day, unless you're going to be camping or backpacking on the island. They did load everybody in that was camping or biking first so that they could get all of the gear on the ferry, and then they let us go ahead and start boarding. And we were off. The ferry ride itself is 45 minutes one way, and on that ferry ride, in addition to beautiful views, you can sometimes see dolphins, otters, manatees, all types of wildlife. I actually did see quite a few dolphins, although I didn't get any on film. And you have the option to either get off on the Dungeness dock or the Sea Camp dock. If you are camping or bike riding, you do have to get off at the Sea Camp dock. So I chose to get off at the Dungeness dock since I was only going to be hiking and I was doing the loop that would lead me back to the other dock anyways. One thing that made my experience even more special, in my opinion, is the fact that since there are only 2 ferries over all day, there are relatively little to no people compared to what you would normally expect in a national park experience. So it really kind of felt like I was exploring an island all by myself for most of the day, and I rarely passed another person once I got off the boat until it was time for me to load it on again at the end of the day. Look at these trees. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I just spotted my first official horses. Do you guys see them? After spending some time photographing the first horses that I spotted, I decided to continue on my way towards the Dungeness ruins, which was going to be my first major stop on the trail that I was taking. I appreciated that the trails were all really well marked, including all of the little offshoots and spur trails, as well as the main road. So even if I hadn't had the map with me, I feel like it would have been pretty easy to avoid getting lost, which is saying something for my lack of direction that I normally have without a map. I know I've already mentioned the trees a couple of times, but I just really could not get over how many gorgeous old oaks and Spanish moss and just beautiful greenery was everywhere. I really got lost in the scenery for a while and had to remind myself that I needed to make sure I had enough time to see everything before it was time to get back. So I finally made it to the ruins themselves and started making my way up the walk. The Dungeness ruins were actually the old homestead and estate for the Carnegie family once they bought it from the original owners. So a lot of the outbuildings and ruins and buildings in the area were parts of that homestead and estate, and they do have signage and maps everywhere kind of explaining the layout and letting you know what was what. So it was just really cool to be able to walk around these old ruins and take in the history and the beauty of the place on such a lovely day. People have actually inhabited the island since about 4,000 years ago, starting with indigenous people and then eventually the Spanish missionaries when they were colonizing the United States for the first time, and then eventually the British and so on. And it was just really interesting to read up on the history of the place as I was going around and taking everything in. I decided this would be a good time to stop and enjoy my picnic lunch of a bagged salad before it got too much later or hotter in the day out in the sun. And then I continued on my way exploring the rest of the island and heading towards the beach. On the way towards the beach, the trail took me through some more of the old buildings and portions of the homestead that used to be inhabited on the island. And I decided this would be a good time to take a quick restroom break since there are only a couple of bathrooms that you are able to access while you are on the island. buildings that I was exploring in this area were all from the late 18 to early 1900s. While you're not able to tour the old Carnegie family cemetery, they did have a cemetery on the island that you are able to kind of walk around and read about. So I did take a little detour to take that in and then again enjoy the views in the area for a little bit longer. It's at this point in the trail before you get to the dunes and the beach area that you have to leave the rental bikes. So they do have a bike rack there where you can leave the bikes parked and then kind of go explore the beach for a while and then come back and get your bike again. But they don't allow you to take the bikes onto the boardwalk or the dunes themselves. And as you can see, it is not rare to encounter lots of piles of evidence of the wild horses that inhabit the island as well. This is the salt marsh area, which is a spot where people can observe wading birds and is kind of the lowland country that a lot of the Georgia-Carolina coast is known for. And as you can see, the boardwalk takes you through some mangroves and marshy areas. And it was just a really pretty, peaceful spot that kind of transitioned from the heavy forest that you were walking through to the wide open beach. I can definitely say that this would be an area that you would not want to spend a lot of time in during the hottest parts of the year. I've heard that it can be pretty unbearable in the summer with all of the vast open sand and lack of shelter that just kind of soaks up that heat. So that is definitely something to keep in mind if you plan on visiting in the warmer months. As I said, I got lucky with the weather. It wasn't too cold and it never really got hot the day that I was there. So it was pretty much the perfect day for exploring. And you can see the terrain definitely starting to change again. I think that was one of the things I enjoyed so much about my hike is that you go through so many different ecosystems in one place that it really has such a variety of views and types of terrain to take in. The portion of the South End Loop that covers the beach or the coast area here was about 1.5 miles. So again, just keep that in mind if you're going to be there during the hotter months of the year. but it was absolutely breathtaking and wonderful to be able to explore and enjoy the beach without normally the crowds of people that you would expect in such a beautiful location. I definitely took the opportunity here to get my fill of shorebirding in, and then it was time to head back away from the beach inland. The last portion of the loop that I was hiking that day would take me back out of the exposed dune area from the beach into the gorgeous understory of the mature oaks again, with their twisted trunks and beautiful shade. And yes, I know I am going on and on about these trees, but I seriously could not get over them. And then eventually I made my way into the sea camp area, which is actually the first stop you would be making if you got off at the sea camp dock and wanted to head towards camp, going the opposite direction that I took in my loop. I can tell you, as I looked around at the campsites as I was making my way through camp, I was blown away by the beauty of this area, and I definitely have added a return trip to my bucket list that would allow me to camp on the island as well, so that I could experience waking up with these gorgeous trees first thing in the morning. And then I made my way back to the sea camp dock itself, which is actually where you would be getting off if you were biking or camping, and unloading here. This is also the spot that any groups that have booked excursion tours for the day on the island, there's one that goes to the Plum Orchard Mansion and a couple of other excursions. So this is where you would meet if you had booked a tour ahead of time as well. They do recommend that with the tours and the ferry rides alike, especially during the main season, that you book online in advance, because they do have a tendency to fill up really fast. So just keep that in mind when you're planning your trip. At this point in my hike, the only stretch of trail I had remaining in my loop was taking me back from Sea Camp Dock to the Dungeness dock that I initially embarked at, which is what you're seeing right here. At this point, I still had a couple of hours before I needed to be back at the ferry to be picked up, so I decided to head back to the Dungeness ruins and spend some more time with the wild horses there, and just really enjoyed myself with the wildlife and taking photos of the birds. And then I just kind of spent some more time relaxing and looking through all of the photos that I took until it was time to board the ferry again and head back to the mainland, which I ended up timing out pretty well. Just a couple of other things I forgot to mention earlier were that the cost of the ferry is about $34 per adult after taxes, round trip. You do have to buy both the departure and return trip tickets at the same time, or they will not let you complete the sale. And also, if you have an annual National Parks Pass already, then you do not have to pay the $10 day pass fee to go to the island in addition to the ferry trip. Otherwise, you do have to pay a one-time $10 fee for the day to explore the island as well, unless you are, I believe, a veteran or senior. I'm not sure. Check the website, because there are a few instances where you get a discounted fee for those. And at this point in the day, I had gotten in about 25,000 steps, so I really appreciated the 45-minute ferry ride back to the car to relax and catch my breath. All right, everyone, that was a very long, very fun, very rewarding day, and I am heading home now, exhausted but happy. So I hope you enjoyed watching a tour of Cumberland Island and seeing the wild horses with me, and I will see you next week. Bye.